Please
Well,
go ahead,
thank you.
Tim.
Thank you so much, Tim. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, and hello, everybody, and welcome to It's Not Just What You Say. As Tim said, my name is Kim Hofmann, and I will be your presenter today. What we're going to talk about today is it's not just what you say, and this is one of my favorite presentations because once you understand the 4 secrets that I'm going to share and start using them, you're going to find that they work like magic at improving your communications with others, understanding and interacting with your staff, hiring the right fit for the position, and helping you energize your employees. In fact, communication skills is basically what this entire presentation is about. One of my favorite quotes is from Oliver Wendell Holmes. It says, "Man's mind, once stretched by a new idea, never regains its original dimensions." My goal today is to help stretch your mind and have you look at your relationships and communication in a totally different way. Think of it as a kaleidoscope.
They're like oil and water.
The pieces are the same, but every time you turn it, your view changes. And let's get this to change here. Excuse me a second. Okay. Those of you that saw my presentation yesterday also saw this comic strip, and I love it. It's a Zitz comic strip. And it pertained to yesterday's presentation, and it also pertains to today. And Zitz is sitting there fishing, and he says it feels weird to sit here contemplating murder. Fishing is not murder. It's all how you perceive it. And that's what communications is. Have you ever talked to somebody and you just knew that you were you just struck out. They just were not on the same page as you. And you can say the same thing to the same exact words to somebody else and they get it. It's all about perception. Perception is the truth. It's just our version of the truth. And just some ways to show you, is this a duck or a rabbit?
Well, I'm recording this webinar, so she'll be able to. That's what this is about misunderstanding and perception.
Kim, go ahead.
Kim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Kim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. This is do you see a face of a girl?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you see a guy playing the saxophone? What about this? What do you see here? Do you see a man's face? Can you see the word liar? Are these lines straight or are they curved? Believe it or not, they are straight. And if you don't believe me, you can even take a ruler and you'll see. But they appear curved. It is your perception. How many legs does this elephant have? How about here? Try counting the number of black dots. Does it make you dizzy? Can you even count them? And this is one of my favorites. Look real closely at this image. What are you seeing here? That little guy looks like he's in a little bit of trouble. Is he in that bird's mouth? All I'm going to do is flip this image. This is the same image upside down. Now what do you see? Is he in a canoe? Does he look pretty happy? Again, here's the first image. Here's the image. And all I'm doing is flipping it. Same exact image. I'd like to start by showing you those images because it all depends on our perception, how we look at things, and how important our perception is. And as I said earlier, your perception is the truth. It's just your version of the truth. It's all how you look at it. Now, I want everyone to take a few seconds and on a sheet of paper, describe somebody that you have difficulty with, your difficult person. Just write it down and write down why they're difficult. They have a short fuse, how they talk, how they approach you, how listening skills. Kind of that person that as soon as you see them, you're irritated. They don't even have to open their mouth. And I'm sure you have somebody like that. We all do. So write the person down because we're going to be coming back to them later on in this presentation. Now, one of the things about communication styles, and I like this Popeye, I am what I am, what I am. The goal of this presentation is to get you to look at your communication styles differently, but we're not asking you to change because you are who you are. But what I am asking you to do is to, as I said, look at how you interact with people differently. And one of the things with communications is it's not a cookie cutter approach. There is no one best way. So there's several different ways to approach it, and hopefully during this hour I'll be able to share with you several different ideas that you can try. Now, how many of you know the golden rule? Everybody's unmuted, so does anybody want to say it? Nobody? I'll share it with you. Does it sound familiar? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How many of you have learned that ways back? And you know what? I love the golden rule, especially when it comes to honesty, when it comes to values. But I would like to share with you a little bit different version of the golden rule, and it's called the platinum rule. And what the platinum rule says is do unto others as they want done unto them, or to treat others the way they want to be treated. And this is a big difference because if you treat everybody the way you want to be treated, you're basically only going to be satisfying about 25% of the people. This is treat people the way they want to be treated. It helps move you from a position power. And position power is people are nice to you because of your position. And sometimes the people with the most power in an organization could be the receptionist. But this gives you personal power. People are going to want to work with you because they want to work with you. Now, what we're doing is we're talking about personality styles. We're not talking about behavioral styles. In personality styles, we are part of all the styles are part of us, but we do have one style that's stronger than the other. Now, this personality styles has been around for a long, long time. Hippocrates, his was your blood. He said based on your blood, you're sanguine, phlegmatic, melancholic, or choleric. Carl Jung came out with intuitors, the thinkers, the feelers, the sensors. DISC, which is really popular now, has drive, influence, steadiness, and compliance. In fact, I was just thinking the drive one on DISC is also known as dominant. Myers-Briggs. How many of you have done Myers-Briggs? I've done it several times. Really love what it has to say. They have 16 mixtures of the four temperaments. And what I found with the issue with Myers-Briggs, though, those of you that have done it, most of you can pretty well remember what your behavioral style was, but how many of you were able to apply it to others? That's where I struggled on that one. The Christian writer Tim LaHaye, several of his books, Why Do You Act the Way You Do, is 12 mixtures of the 4 temperaments. There's social styles out there, the analytical, driving, amicable, and expressive. And then finally we have the Platinum Rule, and that's basically the style I'm going to be sharing with you today. That's director, socializer, relator, thinker. But what I wanted to come across in this slide is that they're all saying the same thing. They're just different ways of demonstrating the behavioral styles, the 4 basic behavioral styles, and that no matter which way you look at it, it basically boils down to 4 different styles. And we cannot forget, you can also look at your behavioral styles by shape. Are you more of a triangle, a circle, a rectangle, square, or a squiggly line? In fact, in your notes real quick, write down which one do you relate most to, the triangle, the circle, the rectangle, square, the squiggly line? Or you could look at color. What color are you? Do you relate more to green or orange or blue or gold? And again, take a second and write it down. We'll see how close these all are, all the styles are, as to coming up with the same basic strength or style that you have. One of the things I like about this is that it's not having you change. The goal of this presentation is to have you look at how you communicate. If I was from Germany and I came and did this, and I was doing this presentation, and I don't speak German hardly at all, Sprechen Sie Deutsch is about it. But I spoke and I gave this webinar in German, the language that I would be most comfortable with. How many of you would really get much out of this presentation? Probably not many, but if I would make the effort and I speak in the language that you speak in, how many of you then would be able to understand what I'm saying a lot better? And that is what I want to get across. That this is a communication style. I've done this presentation for years, and I remember when I first started doing it, people would get pretty defensive. This is who I am, and kind of take it or leave it, and I'm not going to change. And it doesn't have to do with changing who you are. It just is changing how you present things. It's, again, all about communications. And this is so important because only 1/4 of the people perceive a situation like you. What about the other 75%? If you are a New Yorker and you head out to North Dakota and talk to people in North Dakota just like you talk to a lot of your friends in New York, do you think there might be some issue with communications? Do you think there might be some issues as to how you might be perceived by people? Probably. You may come across, and I'm using stereotypes here, but you may come across as stronger, more rough and gruff, where in North Dakota it's more laid-back style. So again, it's very important to know how you're being perceived in a situation. So recognizing others' behavioral styles. Okay, there's 3 ways you basically can recognize other behavioral style, and usually all 3 ways are communicating often at the same time. But the first way is verbal, the actual words they use. And one of the ways to remember verbal is if you would take this webinar and it would be transcribed and you would read the words I said, that would be verbal. Vocal is the way you say those words. Your rate of speech, your inflection, your intonation, your emphasis. Vocal gives you more meaning. A good example is oh. If I go, oh, mean one thing, or oh means something totally different? Or what if I go, oh, I can be asking a question, I could kind of be a put down. So again, that's what the vocal does. You are pulling up even more clues by the way people say it. As I said, oh, I understand. You can say, oh, is oh, I don't understand. You can, oh, can be a surprise. It could be a disappointment. It could be a disgust. And another clue then we have is visual. The way people subconsciously communicate their intentions through their body language, through their facial expressions, through their gestures. And when you put all three together, you usually have a pretty good picture of the other person's behavioral style. But visual, if I'm having an argument with my significant other and I say, I'm not angry. Now, if you just read the words, I'm not angry, you would take it at face value. But if I would go, no, I'm not angry, you get a different kind of perception. And if I'm tapping my toes and staring daggers at you, even though I'm saying I'm not angry, what are you going to believe? You're going to believe the visual. Now, most of the information I'm sharing with you today has come from the Platinum Rule group, and I was given permission from Scott Zimmerman. So if anybody wants more information on this and they have some self-test, etc., you can go to www.platinumrulegroup.com for more information. But I'd like to start out by giving you some really quick ways of looking at people, and from probably within 30 seconds, deciding what behavioral style they are exemplifying right then. And what we do is we look at, is a person open or guarded, or are they indirect or direct? Then, so when we look at the open and guarded, and we're going to look at that part first, are they willing to share feelings or thoughts? Open people are very easy to read. They're easy to get to know. Open people, they are more into relationships and people, and they're very free with their time and space. Now, on the other end of the continuum, guarded, they are more task, work, and results-oriented. As I said, open are more people-related, and guarded, task, work. They're very tight with their use of time. When we go back to open, free with their use of time, 9:05, yeah, about the same. When you're talking to a guarded person, 9 o'clock means 9 o'clock. Guarded people, as the word says, they're harder to read. They're harder to get to know. Decisions. Open people, their decisions are based on their feelings, their gut feelings. They're very instinctive. I just knew. What do you think about guarded people? They need the evidence. They want the proof. Open people's focus is on opinions and feelings. Guarded, more facts and task. Open has people that are more of an open personality, they have a tendency to stray from the subject. You may be starting to talk about this, but by the end of the sentence, they're on to something else. Guarded people, they stay on subject. They stay on task. Open people come across as relaxed and warm. Guarded, more formal and proper. Open people prefer to work with others. They're people. Guarded people, they like to work independently. They are quite happy being in an office, and usually guarded people want a clean desk with the door shut. Open people get their energy from other people. Open people are more animated from their facial expressions. If this were a live seminar and I was doing this presentation, open people right now would be kind of shaking their heads going, yeah, I understand. Guarded, I have no clue, but that is giving me a clue. Nonverbal feedback. Again, open people often, you can tell from their face, they're shaking their head, they're agreeing with you or disagreeing with you. Guarded, very seldom can you read their face. Open people have a tendency to vent more. They're more the fight people. Guarded people are more suppressed. They're more the flight. Open people respond very positively to dreams, visions, and concepts. Guarded people want reality, experience, and data. If they're going to buy a car, an open person will test drive it. They can just feel the wind. They can see themselves in that car. It is feeling good. And they will often purchase that car based on how they feel. What do you think about a guard person? Nope. What do they need? Yep, they need the facts. They need the Consumer Reports and the fact sheets and the Car and Rider or whatever those magazines are. They need the data. Just because a car feels good and the test drive was wonderful, that's not enough for them to buy the car. Where if it feels wonderful, an open person will often buy the car based on just how it feels. So now the question is, are you more open or are you more guarded? Take a few seconds. There's a continuum there from 1 to 4. 1, very guarded. 2, somewhat guarded. 3, somewhat open. 4, very open. And no, you cannot go right in the middle. This is where we are all 4, but where are you most of the time? So has everybody taken a few seconds and determined if you are more open or guarded? Okay, let's move on. Now that we have that, let's look now at, are you more indirect or direct? Let's look at the pace. A direct person is very fast-paced. They walk fast, they talk fast, they're very confident. They're often more extroverted. They're talk and tell. Direct people readily take risk, and they are driven by the need to accomplish. And that's very important to know what drives people. Direct, they want to accomplish. Fast-paced, you can tell a direct from an indirect just watching them walk and listening to them talk. Indirect are more easygoing. They're more cooperative. They're more introverted. They ask and listen. They said extroverts and direct people more talk and tell. Introvert, ask and listen. They're slower to take risk, and they are driven by a need to be certain. They need to be right. Again, direct need to accomplish, get things done. Indirect need to be certain. Now, are you starting to see how this might have an effect on management and how you relate to people? Approach risk. Direct people are very spontaneous. They make decisions very quickly. Indirect people, very slowly, very cautiously. Direct people frequently contribute. Indirect people infrequently contribute. Direct people use lots of gestures. They talk with their hands. Indirect, seldom gesture. Direct are very empathetic, and indirect statements have to be qualified. Again, where is the report showing that? Again, direct is more feelings and intuition. Emphasize points. Direct often through how they say things in the body language. Indirect through the explanations of content. Opinions. Direct people, they're right out on the table. You know how they feel. Indirect are often kept inside. Direct people are often seen as impatient and competitive. Indirect are often very patient and cooperative. Direct people are very intense and often assertive. Indirect are understated and reserved. Direct eye contact, they usually keep the eye contact with you. Indirect, they'll look at you, they'll look down, they'll look back at you, they look down. This one I love. Views, rules, and policies. Direct they're windows of opportunity. They're gray areas. Indirect, letter of the law. Now just look at this slide. Can you see in management how this could be cause some issues? Just right away as for how you view the rules and opportunities, gray areas, or the letter of the law. Yeah. In fact, there's a good example of somebody that, told their kids there's no TV today. You messed up, there's no TV today. And around 8 o'clock, they're walking by and their kids there watching TV, and they're going, I told you, no TV today. And the kid turns around and grins and says, yeah, that was today. Now it's tonight. So would you guess that kid is more a direct or indirect? Yeah, definitely more direct. In general, direct talks more than they listen, and indirect listens more than they talk. Overall, direct people tell you more than ask, and indirect ask more than they tell. So now I want to take a second and have you decide on this continuum. Are you more indirect, A and B, or did you find that more of those questions responded to you that you're more direct? In fact, if you could take a few seconds in that chat, just type in what you are. Does everybody see that chat button up in the top? And everybody's unmuted. Does anybody want to guess what I am? Tim, do you have a guess? Or I may have everybody muted.
I'm
on, okay.
But I'm too cautious to answer your question.
Too want to answer.
I need to ask more questions. No.
You need to, but that tells me right there because you want to be, remember when we talked on the first open and closed and direct, and you would need to be right more than just do the assignment. Okay, let's move on. Okay, let me get out of this guy. Whoops, let's not. Okay. I was just trying to get. Okay, if you happen to be direct and guarded, if you happen to be more in the guarded and more in the direct, you are more of a director. So write that down. Also, too, if you're into the disc, more of the dominant. If you happen to be more open and direct, you're a socializer. Or if you're looking at the disc plan, you're more of an influencer. You're influential. Talk much here? If you're open and indirect, you're more of a relator. You're steady. And if you're more indirect and guarded, you're more of a thinker. So hopefully everybody has what their basic style is. Now your style can change. I found mine changed when I am more when I'm doing presentations. I am more of a socializer. I am more open and direct. When I'm in management, I am more direct and guarded. So depending upon your position, you can be pulling out different behavioral styles. And as I said, you are a blend of all of them. But that is a good thing because you have parts of all the different styles in you. That helps you relate to people that are not as strong in certain styles as in others. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about the director. And I do the director first and foremost because if I don't capture their attention right away, where do you think they are? Yep, they're out of there. The directors, they're dominant, they're drivers, they're decisive. When you looked at the blood type under Hippocrates, they're the choleric. if you look at shapes, they're the triangle and color green. Directors, what excites them? They want action. Their greatest asset is to out-accomplish anybody. If you want a task done and done quickly, give it to a director. Their greatest failing, they can't stand weakness in themselves or in others. And their greatest fear is being soft. Directors, they're direct and guarded. They're fast-paced. They move quickly. They're strong-willed and strong-minded. They accept challenges, take action, and get immediate results. They often make decisions when others can't. They speak with authority. They talk more than they listen. They get right to the point. They're very impatient with delays. They tell others what to do. They're very confident toward risk and change. They make decisions quickly and decisively. And remember that, because with each of the different styles, there's a quiz here at the end. I'm going to ask you how they make decisions. Directors make decisions very decisively. They're cool, independent, and very competitive. They want to be number one. They could care less about being number three. They have a drive to come in first. They like control. They dislike inactions. Their goal results and very bottom line oriented. And under stress, which is again an important point to remember, they become very dictatorial. Directors need achievement and control. They take charge. As I said, they make decisions quickly. Directors are the ones that if you want a project done, you give it to them and they will get it done. Anybody have any guesses on what might be a little difficult for a director? How about dealing with slow-paced people? Yes, it drives them crazy because they're so fast-paced. Failure to make rapid, tangible progress. They want to move ahead. They do not like to rework things. They want to make progress. They hate doing the same task over and over again. They want new. They hate lots of rules and regulations. Those are made for everybody but them. And being diplomatic, because they're always right. So here's some strengths. Again, they can make decisions when others can't, confront tough issues and situations. They can accept change as a personal challenge, and they're great at keeping the team focused and on task. But as we said, each of the strengths has some positives and negatives. They can come across as unapproachable. They can be insensitive to others. They may show impatience with others. Try to move before the team is ready. And the other limitation that I didn't put in there, they often think compliments to people and pats on the back, but they often don't say it. And directors can become more effective by developing more patience, toning down the directness and asking more questions, and working on their body language and offering more encouragements in conversations. So, how many of you know a director or are a director? Okay, let's move on to the socializer or the influencer. They are expressive. They're known, as I said, as the influencers. They're very optimistic. They're outgoing. Sanguine is their blood type. They're the squiggly line when you look at shapes. And their color is a red-orange. What excites them? They love tossing around ideas. They're fun to be around. Their greatest failing, being erratic. Another great failing of a socializer is following through. They love coming up with new ideas, but following through is often a challenge for them. And their greatest fear is not being liked. They're direct and open. They're fast-paced. They move quickly. They're team players. They're intuitive. When they talk, they're very animated. They're lively. They're an idea person. They're a dreamer. They talk a lot. They jump topics. They're expressive. They speak persuasively. They're friendly, extroverted, energetic and enthusiastic. They're optimists. They're fun-loving optimists. They hate rejection. They're more comfortable with best guesstimates than carefully researched facts. They make decisions very spontaneously. They don't need all the details. They seek applause, approval, and avoid routine. And under stress, they're the most verbal of all the behavioral styles, and under stress, they can become very sarcastic. They like attention and approval. What do they do best? Persuading others, as I said, shifting on the fly, creativity. You want them on your team, and you want them with you, not against you. So let's move back. Anybody have any guesses on what might be difficult for them? Restrictions or routines. They hate formal reports or keeping detailed records. They hate redoing something once it's finished. So are you starting to see some of the similarities with the directors as to the 4 different types? And then looking at the differences too. Choosing only one answer or possibility. And why is that a difficult for them? Because they see the world in color. They do not see the world in black and white, and only to pick one is extremely difficult. Explaining their thought process to others, they usually can't even explain it to themselves, so they have a real difficult time often trying to tell others. Not interrupting others and not talking. And in review, their strengths is they're really great at working with others, inspiring others. They're enthusiastic. They're optimistic. They have a great positive attitude, and they're good at giving positive feedback. But limitations, they can be disorganized, maybe superficial, and often lack follow-through. And they can be more effective by listening more carefully, becoming more organized, and providing more detail and following through. Then we have our relators. That's what I always wanted to be. Mary Tyler Moore, whenever I think of a relator, when she's throwing her hat up and everybody loved Mary. Mary's a relator. They're steady, they're sympathetic, they're cooperative. Blood type is phlegmatic. They're a circle, and if you want to go by shapes, and they're the color blue. What excites them? They like routine, productive routines. They like to know what's expected. Their greatest strength is easy to get along with. Their greatest failing is often being timid, not sharing what they think. And truthfully, relators can be a little passive-aggressive at times. And their greatest fear is change. They like routine. They're open and indirect. They're slower paced. They listen more than they talk. They seek stability and harmony. They avoid conflict. They're great listeners. They're very predictable. They're unassertive, warm, supportive, and reliable. They rarely make demands of others. They're easy to get along with. They're very nice people. They speak emotionally, so when they're talking about Aunt Sue's sick cat, you can hear it in their voice. They're very warm, supportive, and friendly. They fear sudden changes and risk. They seek security and belongingness. They make decisions consultatively. Mark, come here. What do you think? Hey, Mary, come here. We've got to decide something. Now, do you think a decision or a director makes decisions very consultatively? No, they make the decision and then kind of ask people what they think. Out of all the styles, they're the most people-oriented, and under stress can become very submissive. Relators need respect and tranquility. They hate when people are upset and when there's dissension among them. And again, they're wonderful. They're the best out of all the groups as to listening and bringing harmony. Any idea what might be difficult for them? Assertive or aggressive people. Do you think directors might be difficult for relators and vice versa? Do you think that relators are difficult for directors? Yeah, what do you see when you're looking at those two? Relators have difficult with assertive or aggressive people. Conflict and competition, they don't care if they're first. They just want everybody to get along and work as a team. And how well do you think that flies with directors? Are you starting to see how often it's not just the person, it's the style? It's difficult for relators to work with dictatorial or pushy people, people that use their position power. I'm the boss, do it because I said so. Slow at taking action and making a decision. They avoid risky and unknown situations. And out of all of them, when you're giving criticism to a relator, even if it's positive, really watch how you say it. This is the type that's going to replay your words over and over again for days. So, in review, they're great team players, sensitive to others' needs. They approach meetings, they're very methodical, they listen well, they're likable. Their limitations, they're indecisive. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. They're indirect, and they can resist change. And they can become more effective by learning to be more assertive and more direct, coping better with change, and not carrying the burden of everybody else's problems. So do some of you know some relators or are relators? Have I described some of the people you've worked with? And let's move on to the last one. These are the thinkers. They're the cautious style. They're conscientious. They're concerned. They need to be correct. Blood type, they're the melancholic. If you look at shape, they're square, and their color is gold. Thinkers, what excites them? Reason. They want to know why. Their greatest assets, very high quality work. Their greatest failing, they're too critical, and they're often too critical of themselves. And their greatest fear is irrationality. Thinkers are indirect and guarded. They're slower paced. They're persistent. They're problem solvers. They're stickler for quality and accuracy. They plan ahead. Now, would you think your socializers plan much ahead, or do they go more with the flow? Are you seeing where some of this dissension starts building up? Thinkers, they have a strong need to be right. They're very security conscious. They tend to be skeptical and like things in writing. Does a relator need it in writing? No, a handshake works. They're very organized and structured. What do you think their desk looks like? Very clean. And they're the type that likes to work on one thing at a time. You often look at the socializers, and they Swiss cheese things. They have 10 things on their desk, and they're working on several things at one time. There's the place for everything and everything in its place. They prefer to work alone. They're careful, very guarded when they're speaking. They don't want to be wrong. They listen critically. They talk very sparingly. They speak calmly and unemotionally. They're cool, introverted, analytical. They fear criticism and unpredictability. They make decisions very deliberately. They seek precision, process, and avoid quick decisions. And under stress can become very withdrawn. Thinkers need order, precision, and predictability. And as I said, they're best at organizing and perfecting and fine-tuning. Any guesses on what might be difficult for them? How about working in groups? How about working with unpredictable people? How do you think socializers and thinkers get along? Usually with great difficulty. And if you remember that square that I gave you before, if you look at who is directly catacorner, those are the behavioral styles that usually have the most difficulty with each other. So thinkers and socializers often have the most difficulty working together, and often your relators and the directors have the difficulty working together. But what everybody needs to realize is you need all these different behavioral styles to make a strong team. But the object of this is to help give you clues on how to work with those whose behavioral styles and strengths are opposite of yours. And just even to share an example of a thinker, my ex-husband was an analytical chemist. So if you can guess, he was definitely a thinker, way at the extreme. And he had been promoted into management. And he was struggling a little bit. And anybody have any ideas kind of why? People could not live up to his expectations because he was a perfectionist. He wanted things done right. Don't bother doing it if you're not going to do it right. And he had one employee, and from listening to him describe her, she was definitely more of the influencer, the socializer. And she would come into work, and she would hang up her coat and talk to somebody, and she would. His comment was, she can't even get a drink without talking to somebody. And in his mind, if she had time to talk to somebody, she had time to what? Work more, get more done. But she was more a socializer. She got her energy from people. And I asked him, I said, Kurt, does she get her work done? And he begrudgingly said, what? Yes, she got her work done. But think of how much more she could do if she didn't talk to people. And I just kind of laughed because, there is extremes. If they're interrupting everybody's work and nobody's getting anything done, that's a whole different management issue. But in his mind, she was not getting her work done because she could work so much better and more efficiently not talking. So that management was pretty difficult for him. In fact, he asked to get out of management because he just didn't enjoy it at all. And my sister's kind of the same way, that managing people was very difficult for her because she too is a perfectionist, and nobody could really do it the way she could or do it right. So she found she was a lot better in a position she got into sales that was more dependent on her own skills and not the entire team. Thinkers, disorganized environments. They hate incomplete or unclear directions. They want to know what exactly is expected of them. Do you think directors want to? No, tell them the problem and let them figure it out. They hate questions with no clear answers, sharing their feelings, and making decisions, because they never seem to have enough information. Their strengths, they're thorough, they follow standards, they're accurate, they're very diplomatic. Their limitations, they can be overly concerned with perfections, they can appear aloof, and they tend to hamper others' creativity by sticking with the rules. And they can be more effective by accepting differences, being more open, and focusing on communications. And all these styles, it all boils down to adaptability. That's the key. That's putting the platinum rule into practice. If you change your approach depending on the situation and the person that you're working with, you are going to communicate so much better. And I found that out first when I was in sales, and then back when I was in management. But when I was in sales, I worked for a major food vendor, and I was selling to long-term care accounts. And it was often very difficult to get a meeting with a key decision maker. It could take months. It could take years sometimes to get in to see the key decision maker. And you really didn't have too much time to get them to pay attention to you, or they pretty well in the first minute or two have decided you've got like a minute or two, even if that much, to make a decision. Now, if I walked into a director knowing what you know now on the Platinum Rule, and I noticed way back in the back that there was a family picture, and they were at Wrightsville Beach, somewhere I had been before. If I bring that up to the relator or to the director right at first, and say, "Oh, this looks like Wrightsville Beach," and they will turn me off right away. They want to know business. They want to know the bottom line. They're very task-oriented, and I've pretty well blown that sales call. But if that administrator was a relator, and I brought that up about Wrightsville Beach, and we make a connection that way, they're going to be much more prone to listening to me. And that was such an aha to me because, and then it worked. I think that was the biggest aha. And people give you clues, as I said right in the beginning, the way they talk, the way their office looks. If you see lots of piles on their desk, would you think that they would be a thinker? Maybe if they're extremely organized piles. Or would you guess that they more might be a socializer or an influencer? So as I said, depending upon the type of person is how you might approach things. If you're walking into a director's office and you have 6 notebooks, are they even going to listen to you? No, they have turned you off right away. Directors are bottom line type of people. They want the bottom line, and if they want more information, they'll ask you. If you walk into a thinker's office and you only have 1 sheet of paper with the bottom line, they're going to think you didn't do your work. So it's very important to try to understand the basic behavioral style of a person as to your initial approach. When you're working with thinkers or directors, remember, task first, and only move into a relationship part if they initiate it. You need to be all business with thinkers and directors. When working with socializers and relators, you need to get to know them first. You need to chat with them and then move on to the task at hand. So here's a quick test to see how well you've understood the behavioral styles. Guess their ideal vehicle. Socializers, what kind of car, what vehicle do you think a socializer might pick? Anybody guess a sports car? And how many of you had it red? How about relators? How about an SUV, a minivan, more that can get in there? Come on, Johnny. Yeah, we can fit one more. How about thinkers? How many of you had a Prius or something that's really good on gas mileage? Or what's that, the Honda Fit? And how about directors? What kind of car did you pick for them? How about a Hummer? You notice it's got the cow catcher in front? That's to move the Priuses aside. Or how about a tank? Why is this so important? Remember when I asked you in the beginning to visualize your difficult person? Now I need you to ask yourself, is it the person or the behavioral style that is driving you crazy? And what I usually find is it's the behavioral style that is the opposite of yours. And most of your difficult people are in your direct opposite behavioral style. So for relators, it's directors. For directors, it's relators. For thinkers, it's socializers. Socializers, it's thinkers. We look through the world with our filters, and we think our view is correct and right. Others look at the world through their filters, and the key is to adapt. Remember, the person in any exchange who has learned their own style and can recognize that of another person or people will always have the power to communicate more effectively in the exchange. So, one last test. In a movie theater, how does each style act? Directors come in late and make everybody stand when they take the middle seat. Socializers attend in groups. They're the ones that are doing all the applauding and talking. Relators gets there 15 minutes early, then stays to see the entire credits at the end of the movie. And thinkers reads the reviews before attending. Reading the newspaper. Directors mainly read the headlines and scatter the sections in the process. Socializers will read the obituaries first to see if they know someone. Relators looks over the entire paper. They clip interesting articles to share with others. And thinkers calls the newspaper if a word's spelled incorrectly. And shopping for groceries. Director is the impulse shopper, no list. Socializers tells you where everything in the store is, whether you ask him or not. Relator is prepared with the list and gets it done very efficiently. And a thinker would never dream of going shopping without coupons, list, and a calculator. And finally, in an elevator. Directors get on the elevator and push the button that closes the door as soon as they get on. Socializers always says, there's always more room for one more, even if there isn't. Relators will wait in line to get on the elevator till everybody else gets in. And thinkers will count the people in the elevator, and if over the limit, will make someone get off. So I'd like to conclude with an old standby that I probably saw first 30 or 40 years ago. I know, I'm aging myself here. But how many of you have seen The Old Woman, Young Woman? When you look at this picture, do you see an old woman or a young woman?
Oh, yes.
And if you see the young woman, wish to see the old woman, there's some hints to the right. And I'm going to leave that up as I conclude behavioral styles, and hopefully you've realized it's just not what you say, it's how you say it and how you communicate with people. And once you learn this and once you start practicing, it helps you at work, it helps you with employees, those of you in sales, it helps you in that, it helps you with your family. So hopefully I've been able to shed some light on behavioral styles, and my goal was to make it so that it was something that you could remember, that you could apply, that you could use. So in conclusion, if anybody has any questions, just type them on in. And I just want to thank you so much for spending this hour with me.
Well, thank you very much, Kim, for this very informative presentation. I personally learned a lot, not only about myself, but other people that I know and interact with. Viewer number 29 says indirect. So viewer number 29 they're an indirect. So viewer 29 want to make a comment about being indirect.
I think they even put that right in the beginning when I was asking if everybody was indirect or direct.
Mm-hmm. Any comments?
Does anybody have any questions, any comments? Did they learn something?
Please speak
We've
up.
got a quiet bunch here.
Quiet bunch. We've got several folks here. I know somebody's at the show because I can hear that vroom going because they need to keep it active or okay. So I recognize that sound right away. But so we have. I would like to get a copy of this PowerPoint if possible. This would be great for my manager.
I could help you out with handouts, but I can't give you the PowerPoint, but I do have handouts for this presentation that I'd be more than glad to share with you if you want to let Tim and Dee, give them your email address, and I'd be glad to send it on to them, and then they can pass it out to you.
My email address is very simple, tim@csifoodpro.com. So if you have any questions or requests, whether it's this session or any of the other sessions that we've had this week, because I think some of you have been to several of them. But this has been a very good presentation, very informative, and Kim, I thank you very much, and I speak on behalf of everybody for making such a informative, entertaining presentation.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes.
We will talk tomorrow.
We will. So with that, we will say thank you all, and thanks for coming. And just to mention again that this session will be available by video on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and also next week on Tuesday at, I believe, 3 p.m. Eastern Time in its entirety. So if you want to come back, there's just a lot of very good information here. I think it probably requires going through the video presentation to learn more. So I thank you all for joining us, And that concludes our session for today.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.